The first step for creating your motion graphic files or your MOGRT files inside of Adobe After Effects for Premiere is to first of all just begin by creating a new composition. And then you just want to go ahead and make sure that you set your preset and all of your settings here to the settings that you were going for. In my example, I'm going to go for 1920 by 1080, and that is an aspect ratio of 16:9 or widescreen. And I'll just set the duration to around 10 seconds. Then we'll press OK. Now from here, the next part of the process is to go ahead and create your title. So we're first just going to begin by going up to the T icon. We'll just zoom this out to fit. And then I'm just going to type out my first word or my first name. So I'm just going to put my name, which is Chris Brooker. And then I'm just going to pull the size of this down using the character window. And then I'll just place this in the center of the composition. Now I am going to use the proportional grid to help me frame this up. I'm going to pull the size of this down a little bit more and just move this into the middle. Now we can go ahead and create a new title. So we'll go into the T icon and I'm just going to add some subtext here. So I'll put video creator or video creator. We'll pull this down. So pull the size of this down and we'll just drop this underneath the name. So we've got a name and we've got a subtitle. So we've got two different titles here. And if you wanted to, you could change the color of this as well. But for now, this is a great starting point. We've got two different text layers. Of course, though, at the moment, there is no animation. So we need to go ahead and create the animation so that we've actually got settings and properties to control later on. So first of all, I'm going to begin with the name. So I'm just going to do a simple scale in. So I'm going to go into transform, go to scale. We'll go across to around half a second in, create a brand new keyframe on the scale. Then we'll go over to the left, maybe 5 or 6 frames. Pull that up to 110, and then we'll go back to the beginning and pull that down to 0. So when we play this back, you can see we get that bouncing. I am going to convert these keyframes from linear keyframes into easy ease keyframes. You'll see why. You can see that animation now looks like it's got a little bit more character. Before it was just suddenly starting and then suddenly stopping, but now it's easing in and out of each keyframe. And then I'll just go towards the end of the composition and I'll create a brand new keyframe on the scale, go a few frames over to the right and pull that down to 0. So as you can see, we have animated in and then at the end we are animating out. Now I just need to go ahead and animate video creator in, and for ease, I'm just going to do an opacity effect here. So we'll go into the drop down arrow, go into transform, then we'll just create a brand new keyframe on opacity at 100%. We'll go back in time half a second and pull that down to 0. And we will repeat the process on the other side as well. So on the outro, we'll just fade out. And I'm just going to pull those back so that it fades out before the other text scales out. So this is our basic animation. Really basic at the moment, but that is completely fine for now because this is a great starting point. So of course, it's completely up to you if you wanted to enhance this and take this to the next level and add loads of different lines and motion graphics into this, but I'm going to keep it really super simple for now. So now your next step is to get this into the essential graphics panel and convert all of these into adjustable settings that can be adjusted inside of Adobe Premiere. So that will be the next video. So following on from the previous video, you can see we have this animation completed, and now we can just go ahead and get this into the essential graphics panel. And by default, you won't see the essential graphics panel in After Effects. You either need to change the window up here, so you can go into an essential graphics window. As you can see, this is the essential graphics panel, so you can open that up to load the essential graphics here. Or alternatively, if you're just in the default window, you can activate the essential graphics panel by going to window, scrolling down to Essential Graphics, and then just enabling Essential Graphics. And as you can see, that is loaded up on the left of the frame. So essentially with the Essential Graphics, we want to create a group. But before we can do that, we want to go ahead and select which composition we want to work with. So you can see this is Comp 1, so we'll just select Comp 1. And then I'm just going to select Set Poster Time. So I'm going to hover over halfway through the video so that we can see the text, and we will select Set Poster Time. And this is just our thumbnail. And then we'll go ahead and call this Basic Text MOGRT file. There we go. So from this point, we just want to go ahead and split this animation into different groups. So we've got our first text and we've got our second text, and we can also do a global control as well. And in order to do the global control, we're going to nest everything or pre-comp it, but we'll come back to that in a moment. So let's just focus on this first text, so the name. So we'll go down to the bottom left corner of the Essential Graphics panel and select Add Group. A group is basically just a folder, and we'll rename this to Name. You could call this Text 1, you could call this Big Text, Large Text, whatever you want, that's what you're going to put in there. Now we'll go into the drop down arrow of the text layer. We'll go into the text layer, so we'll open this up. And as you can see, you've got source text. And you want to right click on source text and select Add Property to Essential Graphics. Now in the Essential Graphics, you can see you've got this menu here, Edit Properties. If you select Edit Properties, you want to go ahead and select Enable Custom Font Selection, Enable Font Size Adjustment, and Enable Faux Styles. If you press OK on that, it allows the user of the preset to change the font, the size of the font, and add a faux style. So that's a fake bold, fake italic, or these other options here. Now you just want to go ahead and control your other settings. So we'll go down to here in the Transform tab. You can have anchor points. So we'll add this to the Essential Graphics. Then we'll go to Position. We'll add this to Essential Graphics. And if I try to add scale to Essential Graphics, we're going to get this warning. It's saying because this is keyframed, the keyframes will be ignored, and this means we lose our animation. So when I put this into Premiere, that animation won't be there. So we'll undo that, and instead I'm going to go ahead and add another round of scale on top of this. So we'll go into Animate, and we'll go down into Scale. And now you'll see you've got Animator 1, Range Selector, Scale. So if I add this scale, the one without the keyframe animation, we add that property to Essential Graphics, we can now control the scale, but the beauty of that is it's not going to affect the animation down here. So I can just adjust the scale like this. So now that we've added the scale, we can carry on down in Transform. We can go into Rotation. We'll right click on that, select Add Property to Essential Graphics, and we'll go down into Opacity and we'll do the same thing again. Now, as you can see, we've got Chris Brooker Transform Anchor Points, Chris Brooker Transform Position. So if you wanted to clean all of this up, then you can just click on the names and you can delete any information which is not relevant. So as you can see, I'm getting rid of this title here and just having anchor point, position, scale, rotation, and opacity. So that means when you're using this as a preset in Premiere, or if you plan on selling this as a preset pack, then everything is nice and easy to understand. So far we've got the font, so we can change the font and we can change what the word is actually saying. So this doesn't have to be my name, this could be somebody else's name. So we can add that in there, and that will update, as you can see. And then of course we can change the font, we can change the weight of the font, we can add some faux styles, and of course we've added the ability to adjust the position, the scale, and the rotation and opacity. However, at the moment we can't control the color. So if you wanted to change the color, we would have to add an effect onto the text and add that effect into the Essential Graphics window. So there's multiple different ways of changing the color, but I'm just going to do the most simple way, and that is to go into Change to Color, drop that onto the text, and you can see up here you've got from white to white. You want to change the two to a different color, so let's go for red in this example, and we want to change the change option from hue to hue, lightness, and saturation. Of course, if you've started off with black text or blue text and you want to change the color, then you want to make sure that the from is that specific color. But it's white in this example, so we're changing it from the white that we started with into this custom color. And then we can go down into the effects window down here. We'll select change to color. We'll go on the to, and we'll add property to graphics. So then we can just rename this to color. And when we change the color of this in this window, it should change the color of the text like it has done. And of course, there's a few other settings that we can add in as well. So if we go into animate, then we can add some tracking. And tracking is essentially just the spacing between each character. So if I increase the tracking amount, you can see that's going to add that spacing there. So if we wanted to give you that flexibility to adjust that in the template, then you just add tracking amount to the Essential Graphics, and you can just rename that to tracking amount. So at the moment you can see if I open up or close that folder, nothing is happening, and that's because everything is not in the folder. So we just need to drag this up, move everything up into that folder, and this means that when we collapse the folder, we're going to have this nice and organized on the left over here. So if I close this down, everything disappears. But now we can move on to the next text. So we can just go ahead and add another group, and we'll just call this subtitle. And again, we can do the exact same process. So if we go into the video creator layer, we'll open this up, go into text, add the source text. And because I've already enabled all of these settings here, you'll see all of these settings circulate and populate up here. Then we can carry on and we can add our anchor point, position, scale, and rotation. I'm highlighting all of those so that I can bulk add those in like this. You can see opacity has got keyframe animation applied to it, so I'm going to have to add opacity in over here, and then I'll add that opacity to the Essential Graphics. And then if we look up here for reference, you can see we've just got color and tracking amount. So again, we can go to change to color, drop this onto this text, and we'll do the same thing. We'll go from white to, let's go for a blue this time. Then we want to change the change to hue, lightness, and saturation. We'll go into effects, change to color, and we'll add the two to the property Essential Graphics. And we'll just rename that to color. Then we'll just work our way up and just clean all of these up as well so that we can clearly see what we're working with. And the one thing we're missing on this one versus this one is just the tracking. So we can add tracking in from the Animate tab, right click, add property to Essential Graphics, and that is everything now enabled. So we can just drag these into that subtitle folder. And as you can see, now we can adjust both text layers individually. However, if you wanted to control everything in a global control, how would you do that? Well, first of all, you want to pre-compose your sequence. So if we right click or select everything in the sequence, so we can either drag and select everything that way, or we can select Command or Control if you're on Windows and A. Then we right click and select pre-compose. You can rename this if you like, but I'm just going to keep it as pre-comp 1 for now. And now we can just go ahead and add all of these settings in transform. So position, scale, rotation, opacity. We can add those into a global folder, and that means we can control everything at the same time. So in add formatting, we'll go to add group. We'll call this global. And in the global folder, we want to add anchor point, position, scale, rotation, opacity. And again, we'll just clean these up. So we'll get rid of all the information that we don't need at the beginning. So we'll just have anchor point, position, scale, rotation, opacity. So it's all really clean. And of course as well, whilst you're going through this process, just make sure you're testing each setting. So once you've added it in and once you've cleaned it up, just go ahead and just double check that it's working. As you can see, if I go into the pre-comp one, you can see this is where we originally started. If I adjust the position on one of these layers, you can see that is working. If we go to rotation, that is working. If we go to opacity and play with the slider, that is now working. And then just work through every single property here and make sure everything is working and is functional. So let me go ahead and create a new layer to show you what I'm talking about. So we'll go layer, new solid. We'll make this a black solid. We'll press OK on this. And then in the effects, we'll go into wave. So we'll search for wave. You can see we've got audio waveform, radio waves. Let's drop audio waveform onto the black solid. And essentially this is just going to create an audio waveform when we drop an audio file in. So if I just drop an audio file in, so as you can see, I've dropped this audio file in. I'm not going to play this because I don't want to get in trouble for copyright. But as you can see, if I go into the black solid and I change the source up here to the music layer, you can see that is going to create this animation. However, when I go into effects on that layer, I go into the audio waveform, you can see if I try and change audio layer and add this to the essential graphics panel, it says After Effects warning, property type is not yet supported for use in the essential graphics panel. So even though I can add the start point, the end point, the samples, the thickness, the softness, even though I can add all of these in, unfortunately, I can't add this audio layer option in because it's not yet enabled and it doesn't quite work. So unfortunately, every now and then you will run into this problem. There will be certain effects that won't work. So you have to find a way of working around those problems. But most effects, I'd probably say 80% of the effects and 80% of the options in After Effects are going to work with the essential graphics panel. So now that brings me on to the point of export. So in the next video, I'm going to show you how you export this and get this into an actual MOGRT file or a MOGRT file into Adobe Premiere Pro. In this part of the course, I'm going to show you how to export your MOGRT files from the Essential Graphics panel and turn that into an actual MOGRT file that you can import into Premiere. Now, you'll notice I'm using a slightly different text template, and that is because unfortunately After Effects crashed before I had a chance to save the project, but everything is exactly the same. You can see I've got all the folders labeled and everything is perfectly organized inside those folders. So in order to export this, you want to just make sure that the name is changed. You want to make sure that the composition is set. You want to make sure that the poster time or the thumbnail is set to what you want it to. And then you can just go to Export Motion Graphics Template. After Effects will ask you to save the project, and that's exactly what it's going to do. And then you will be given this option. So you can see you've got destination. So you can go ahead and change this if you want. And then of course you can change the name of this as well. So let's call this test. Then you've got compatibility. So you've got a few options here. The first one is warn me if this motion graphics template uses fonts that are not available from Adobe Fonts. So if you're using this template when you're not connected to the internet and you're using an Adobe font that requires an internet connection, then unfortunately it will just change the font for you. The next one is warn me if After Effects needs to be installed in order to customize this motion graphics template. So if you have a few options inside of your template, you have a few effects that are After Effects specific, they won't work in Premiere, then you might want to select this. And then you've got warn me if there are any text controls that cannot be edited. that cannot be edited with the Premiere Pro type tool. So if there's any text issues and it wouldn't work in Premiere, you just select this. But I generally keep the first and the third selected. And then we press OK. It's just going to verify the fonts from Adobe, and then that will export. And if we check the desktop quickly, you will notice test.mogrt is sitting right there. So now in the next video, I'm going to show you how to take that and put that into Adobe Premiere Pro. So we're inside of Adobe Premiere Pro, and as you can see, we've just got a brand new project. We haven't even got a sequence created yet. So I'm just going to go and create a new sequence. So we'll go File, New Sequence. I'm just going to use one of these presets that I've got created, but if you look over to the settings, you can see 25 frames per second, frame size of 1920 by 1080, square pixels, and then everything else here is fine. And then I'll just rename this to test. So in order to import that motion graphics file, we want to change the graphics window. So if you select that, it will load up the motion graphics window. However, though, unfortunately, nothing has happened. Unfortunately, this does happen. So generally what I do is I just go to the editing window. I go to window up here, and then I select essential graphics there. And that should pop up in a separate tab. Now, when you first open up this window, you'll find loads of different templates that are installed from Premiere Pro. But personally, I was never using them, so I just deleted them out of my essential graphics panel. But if you're going into this for the first time, you'll probably see anywhere between 30 to 50 different templates here. But to import your template, you just want to go into the bottom right. You can see this rectangle with this plus. Select that, and then you just want to navigate through to your desktop or wherever you've exported this to. As you can see, test.mogrt is there, and that has been imported. So in order to edit that, you can just drag this onto your sequence like this, and you'll see a media offline screen just whilst it's loading up. And then if we play this using the spacebar, you can see that animation is now inside of Adobe Premiere Pro. So this is successfully installed. However, before you do start using this, or before you put this onto the internet and sell this as a text template, I would just go into every single folder and adjust every single setting. So in the master controls or the global controls, just make sure that the position works on both axes, make sure that the scale works, make sure the rotation is working, adjust the opacity, and then change this text, change the position, and just go through all of these menus to make sure everything is working. If you do happen to find any issues along the way, so maybe this scale option here isn't affecting anything, then you can go back into Adobe After Effects. You can go back into where that problem was. So if it was in this text layer, you could just delete that scale, go back into the shape layer, go back into the text, and then just re-add that scale, and then just make sure it works inside of After Effects. And then once that does work, and once you know it works in here by testing it, then you can just drop that back into the export window. So we'll export this again. Then you delete this template from Premiere and re-import that back into Premiere, and you should find the issue has been fixed. So just make sure you go through each and every option to make sure that there are no problems whatsoever.